welcome again to day two. My name is Raj Raghavan. I'm the Vice President of the National HRD Network, Bangalore. And for a living, I work for Amazon. This is all voluntary work that we all do for the network. Just to give some quick stats from yesterday, several of us joined via the live stream. And the live stream was going pretty much the whole day, other than during the session when Swami Gaur Gopal Das was speaking, and he had requested not to live stream the session. We had 1555 attendees on the live stream yesterday, and it was in spite of the fact that we pretty much got the live stream connection yesterday in the morning or so. So we didn't have a lot of notice to let people know that we were live streaming, and so today I'm hoping there'll be a lot more. And our Twitter handle, hashtag NHRDCONF16. The Twitter handle had 3 lakh impressions yesterday, which was good. Thank you so much. Continue tweeting, continue putting your impressions in. And Michelle asked me to remind that the Twitter handle, hashtag NHRDCONF16, has 2 things going. One is she's asking for a selfie contest today, and there it is up there, the Twitter handle. The selfie contest, and a lot of us love selfies, and so she's going to have an award for the best selfie. Now, how she's going to determine what's the best selfie, I don't know, but Mitch is very, very good at this. She'll do it extremely well. The second one that we want to let you all know is she's also doing an award for the maximum number of tweets. Almost like a political party, trying to get people in for their conferences. We don't do that here. But, the maximum number of tweets are probably going to get some sweets, or an award. That's what she says. We also have a mobile app. We have it both on the Android channel as well as on iOS. And after every session is over, there is a poll that we have on the mobile app. So please join the poll and tell us what you liked about the session. We obviously didn't ask the question what you did not like, and that we will do later, but please join the poll with us. And so that's how we are going to start day 2. And again, for those that are joining us today, the theme of the conference is Spirit of Entrepreneurship. We had lots of lively discussions yesterday, panel discussions, stand-up discussions, as well as debates, etc. Very, very, very good start. We had 3 segments in the morning, including the inaugural session and then the speech from the Swamiji. And then we had the session on gaining momentum. The gaining momentum portion was basically for those organizations that were at their young stages of startup. And today's session is got 2 segments to it. And the segment that I'm going to be anchoring this morning from 9 a.m. to about noontime is what we call sustaining momentum. And what we wanted to do in this was to look at those organizations who are in the prime of their careers. Those that have done this before, that have been doing it, want to do it more, and try and learn from them. What do they do in order to keep sustainable competitive advantage? And that's what we're going to be discussing. And we have a bunch of things like we always have in a segment. The first one that I'm going to request Nischay Suri to moderate is the one that I have 2 of my former colleagues joining from GE. And the session is GE's way of initiating, managing, and driving change. So let me welcome Nischay onto the stage to moderate the session. Please give him a big hand. Thank you, Nischay. And then we have Monesh, my old friend. He's the leader for the research and technology teams for GE in India. Thank you, Monesh, for making it this morning. And then I have Ravi, an old friend who leads HR for GE in South Asia. Thank you again so much, and it's all for you, Nischay, to take over from here.
Thank you, Raj. So this session is very dear to me on many counts, but the one count it is dear to me is that I've borrowed from quotes that GE leaders have put out there for me to use in my 20 years of consulting. So it's always bailed me out, and I've always had a quote that I've used in my presentations that I've made with clients or in forums such as these. And this instance is no different. So let me start with what Jack Welch said. He said, control your destiny, else someone else will. And a successful company like GE, which has been around for 124 years, of course they've done something right. They always have maintained their standing as far as competition is concerned, and have built ways in which they've kept this sustainable competitive advantage, which is what we will discover in our conversation today with Ravi and Munesh. Thank you for being here.
Pleasure.
In 2009, in fact, I came across this very interesting article put out in the New York Times. Jeff Immelt was addressing a group of GE scientists, and they were launching their new jet engines. Jeff Immelt said that, I'd like all my jet engines to have sensors which would produce a lot of good information data that can be used, and this was back in 2009. Of course, we're living in the age of data, and the importance of data cannot be overemphasized. Let me pick from that, and maybe Munesh, you can throw some light on that pertinent comment that he made on the importance of data. In fact, he went on to say that one day I believe that this data will be as valuable, if not more, than the machines themselves.
Yep.
Where's that story now?
No, it's great. First of all, just thanks for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here with this group of sort of the country's and top HR professionals. For me, you look back at that comment and you look at the journey since then. And just if you just look at, by the end of this year, we'll be about a $6 billion software company. Not many people know that. But that's where that journey has gone in one sentence. But really what's happened is a combination of a few things. If you look at the world today for a minute, the 2 decades prior to this one, 1991 to year 2010, industrial productivity in the world grew at a rate of 3.5% to 4% year on year. So the world got more and more productive. We saw a big sort of a digital thrust in the consumer space. But then you look at this decade, 2011 to now, half decade or so, that number has dropped to between 1 and 2%. This in an environment where the world has only gotten more uncertain, more volatile, more pressure on all of us in every business to perform better in terms of expectations from stakeholders. Whether you're a private company or a public company, doesn't matter. And sort of what Jeff was saying back then, I think, was that it's one thing to have sort of a world-class industrial asset. It's another thing to use that asset in a world-class way so it's always productive, or productive most of the time. Now, a jet engine only helps when it's on a wing.
Right.
If it's off the wing in a service shop, it doesn't help. If you think about, all of us have cars or vehicles that we commute in. If you think about how we maintain our cars, every 5,000 kilometers we do an oil change, every so many kilometers we check the brakes and then change the tires and change the batteries. And it sort of doesn't matter whether you're driving in Bangalore or in the middle of the Rajasthan desert. It doesn't matter what your driving pattern is, how much you have to brake in traffic. You just kind of go do that. Because that's how, no, jet engines used to be that way. Where instead of kilometers, it used to be something called cycles. So takeoffs and landings. The same engine flying on the same airplane at Emirates versus Air India versus Air Canada, for example, will have a completely different experience because of things like pollution in the air or not, sand, dust, heat. So when you have a very hot runway, air is thin, to get the plane off the ground, you gotta add more thrust. Engine works harder. Now if I take that engine and I say, you change all your parts every 5,000 cycles, and the next guy does the same thing, you're actually not optimizing this. So this is a concept of using data, not just the data from the engine, but the data from the environment, to sort of change the outcome. Which basically means, ultimately, you can create sort of a digital twin of an engine when, the asset, the data could be more valuable than the asset. Think of a digital twin that says learning every day, getting better every day, and then ultimately thinking ahead of the engine. Thinking ahead of the engine in the context of the airline operation, what you should do, where you should go. So that's the jet engine analogy, but we've seen this in every single vertical.
Spend a minute or two. Interestingly, we were having a conversation, and Munesh mentioned the last few years, GE has divested $100 billion of assets and acquired $100 billion of assets. So
yeah,
that's a huge portfolio change in a very short period. It's always difficult to keep up with. Just give us a sense of how GE is organized and how many businesses you have, and even to that effect, you also went on to create another SBU called Digital.
That's right.
Which obviously meant that Jeff's comment played a part in setting up your GE Digital Center.
No, I think it's been huge. The transformation's been huge. So you look back 4 years ago, 50% of the sort of company was financial services. Today, that's less than 10%. At the same time, the industrial part of the company with power and all, so 70% of the world's electrons touch a GE machine somewhere in generation or transmission or consumption. So there's a huge shift towards industrial from conglomerate financial industrial. Three major segments: energy, power, and healthcare. Sorry, energy, transportation, and healthcare. And transportation includes aviation and locomotives. 8 businesses within those segments, the newest one being digital. We still have a financial services company, but very tied to financing things like jet engines or power plants or other parts of our business, healthcare, et cetera. So that's the transformation. And then the second big part of this transformation is going from a core industrial company to what we're calling a digital industrial company. So the idea of the digital industrial is to say that we think this is not just us. We think this is the industry transforming itself as well. We started that journey in 2011 in San Ramon, California, with sort of standing up a digital industrial software center. That's evolved to being its own top-tier vertical business within GE called GE Digital, the one that will have $6 billion in revenue this year. So that's been that journey, and as you can imagine, it has its tentacles into a lot of things beyond just buying companies and selling companies and hiring people. It's got its tentacles into sort of the talent you want to have in that kind of organization. How does it work with the rest of this 124-year-old company that we have? What does that mean to culture? What does that mean to, the way we work every day? It's hard to think of a company like GE that makes, acute healthcare gear, MRI machines, jet engines, and say that, hey, it's okay to sort of not be right once in a while. But that's the journey we're on.
So, Ravi, for GE Digital that you set up in San Ramon in 2011, there's been an addition, and in manpower, specifically as far as India is concerned. Plus, you've organized GE Digital into GE for GE, GE for customers, and GE for the world. Can you talk us through about what additions we've made in India and how that's been?
Sure. Munish talked about our transition to become a digital industrial company. Our strategy on the digital side is
Sorry,
three,
can he
four-
be heard?
Can you hear me?
We can't hear anything on the
Can he,
stage.
can he be here?
Just need the monitor.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm just making
Let
sure
me
because we were
try
victims
this.
of that
I think
yesterday.
they can hear it, but we can't.
Okay, is this better? Yeah? Okay. I was just saying that Munish talked about us becoming a digital industrial company. There are three pieces of strategy to our the way we're approaching it. The first one is what we call GE, for GE, digital for GE, which is, see, we have about 400 manufacturing sites in the world. We have 20 of them in India. What we are trying to do is make each of our manufacturing sites smarter, digital. We call them a brilliant factory. So there's a digital thread that runs through the entire manufacturing process, the entire supply chain process. We are digitizing it, so our factories become smarter factories. We first started with 6 manufacturing sites as brilliant factories, and it's a matter of pride for us. 2 of them are in India, one of them is in Pune, one of them is in Bangalore. So we are using the work that we're doing on digitization within our own manufacturing setup. The next one is G for customers, and Munish talked about a digital twin. So it could be a digital twin created for a aircraft engine, or it could actually be a digital twin created for a wind farm. We sell wind turbines. So for our customer, how do we help them with analytics, with digitization to make sure that these wind farms, in terms of just maintenance, uptime, productivity, how do we make sure it's always top end? So this is what we call as G for our customers. The third piece of our strategy is G for the world. So we are creating an internet software platform for the industrial internet. It's called Predix. So this is, if I could say, it's something like the iOS you have for an Apple, which Apple has created for the consumer platform. There will be apps which are created by GE specifically for our equipment. It's an open platform. Eventually there will also be apps which will be created by others, but we are really setting up a secure platform. So this is the 3 pieces of our strategy on digital industrial. And your question about the talent piece that you talked about earlier. So San Ramon was our first software center, but even in India, just last week, we inaugurated our digital hub. It's here in Whitefield. So we will end up having 2,000 technologists focusing and enabling our company not only for the world, but also for our customers in India. There is a place where we will collaborate and co-create with customers and work on solutions for them. So that is what's happening both from a strategy point and how it's happening from a people point, even in our own region, how we are approaching, whom we are hiring, what skill sets do we want to build, etc.
Super. So I'm going to also transition from one section to the other just to make sure that there is continuity as well as a logical break as far as moving from one section to the other is concerned. This was about making it known. And Jeff Immelt, when he was addressing the GE scientists in 2009, he made it known in terms of his vision. And he, in fact, went on to say that in 2020 there would be the top 10 as far as software companies are concerned. When you look at creating sustainable competitive advantage, it is as much about clarity. In fact, I worked with a promoter and he spoke about strategy. This promoter had been very successful running this company for a number of years. And we were talking about strategy and he said, two things are very important. दो चीजें महत्वपूर्ण हैं, दिशा और गति. And then he asked me, Disha and Gati, I'm just going to keep translating because I'm not sure of familiarity with Hindi given part of India that we're in. But Disha and Gati was speed and direction. And he went on to say, but you know what's more important? Direction. Till you don't set the milestone, there's no point chasing something that you're not clear about. And I think Jeff, in a peculiar way, went on to set that direction very early on, which is what your journey is about.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you, the direction, I think the vision is pretty clear, and I think Jeff will be the first to tell you that while we know where we want to get to, we might know the next 3 steps we have to take in the 20-step journey, we'll find the others as we keep moving, because what we're doing hasn't been done before.
Right. And in fact, I'm going to again borrow another quote from Jack Welch. She said, change before you have to.
Yeah.
So clearly, I think GE, in a way, has sort of picked from things that have worked in successful change journeys. The one thing was making it known, the burning platform that you touched upon, clearly recognizing that productivity was needed to be addressed. That provided the business outcomes that Jeff was probably alluding to, as well as make the data as important as the asset, which again, I guess, predicts, which is a platform that allows software or language communication between machines that predicts good outcomes, made that possible. I'm going to move to the next section. So that's really making it known, and I think we've discussed how Jeff went and made that, created that awareness within the organization as far as what the burning platform really was. Let's talk about making it real, which is our next topic for discussion. Now, when you talk about change, the three dragons that usually emerge. I'm borrowing from spiritual masters and bringing that back into corporate. One, fear of failure. And clearly, he is known not to be tolerant of failure. They always wanted to get it perfect and bang on. This was actually opening you up in a way for failure as well, the possibility at least. Second is doubt of intention. And here's this big transformation taking place from a financial conglomerate to or industrial conglomerate to a digital industrial enterprise. And therefore, what lies ahead, obviously the possibilities for traditional legacy workers, it's always, there could be a doubt of intention. And of course, worry of financial security. I'm not sure if you've laid off any people or you've retrained them, but talk me through some of the people dynamics, the challenges, the segmentation of different kinds of people in your organization and how you created the buy-in.
Look, we talked about the change that is happening. While digital industrial is the biggest piece, if you look back at the last few years, a few other things have happened which just helps us much better in this journey. And I would say the first one is that our entire push towards being a much more regional and a local company. Right? So today, GE, 70% of the revenues are outside United States. Right? Now, if our customer base is also outside United States, we need empowered, informed, capable people closer to the customers who can take decisions and deliver whatever it is, products, services, etc. So that's one thing that has happened over a period of time, right? We have become far more local, empowered organization. Why I'm saying this is, it goes back to the whole digital piece, and you talked about failing, fear of failing, etc. This new world that we live in is a world where there's a lot of co-creation with the customer. It is a world where you can launch and learn, because gone are the days of Six Sigma. I mean, not that Six Sigma is sunset, it's ended, right? We still want to have Six Sigma quality and standards when we are manufacturing or doing something, but in the process of creating, it is not you create a perfect solution or a product and then release it to the customer. It is more of you work along with the customer. So maybe it is not the end product that gets released. You actually release a prototype. You release a minimal viable product and then work along with the customer to co-create it. So I don't think, we are not saying failure is not an option anymore. I think the whole idea is fail, but fail fast, right? We need to co-create with the customer, learn from it and move on. So the way we work is something that we call FastWorks, right? And we've learned this from the technology space, and it's basically building up the lean startup methodology. So it really has very few simple steps, right? Once you identify a customer's need, right, you make some leap of faith assumptions, and you come up with a minimal viable product. You test it with the customer. Based on the feedback from the customer, you either pivot You kill the product or you persevere, and then you go through the entire process again. So if this is happening, Ms. Jay, we want our people to start taking bets, right? So now it leads a little bit into the culture piece. So we are far more open to have employees experiment, right? We want them to experiment. So because of this, we've actually revisited our performance. Because we're talking about culture, we've actually revisited our performance management process, if I can
Just
call
hold that thought. Hold that thought before we get into the systems. We'll address, and performance management is a big wow as far as GE is concerned. We'll talk about the bell curve and its abolishment. So I heard you say one, and interestingly enough, if you visit the exhibition area and one of your GE stalls talks about the personality traits of Jeff Immelt. And he says a nose for, one of his personality traits, a nose for risk and reward, which is essentially experimentation.
Right.
You're building that culture of it's all right to make mistakes.
Yes.
If I hear you correctly, which to me may create some inherent conflict and a dilemma with always being right, being accurate. The culture of Six Sigma essentially allows, may take a little longer, but always gets you the right outcome. Here you're saying you take a little more time, perhaps, and make mistakes as well, but we really want to deliver those business outcomes. Do you see a bit of that confusion, chaos existing, coexisting?
I think the muscle we're building as a company, I call it smart risk.
Smart risk.
Smart risk. So I think as leaders, we're encouraged to kind of take bets on things that we think, having the context we do, are the right ones to take bets on. That's the first risk you take. Put your name on something that you're not sure what the outcome's going to be.
Sure.
And that's sort of becoming more prevalent in the company. The second piece of it then is, how do you get the organization to rally around something like that? Without so we honestly don't worry about org charts as much as we did in the past in the company. So it's more about mission and what's the team needed to get there. May not even be the whole mission. Maybe if you're trying to, for example, figure out how to have cleaner and more efficient coal in a country like India, that might be a multi-year journey. But where do you start? What are your first 3 or 4 investments that you make? While the rest of the world is sort of declining on its use of coal, we're still sort of huge here. So to Ravi's point, the local empowerment is, an example of it is now we run sort of a coal efficiency COE for the whole world out of India. Probably 50% of what it does is serves the India market. But then you got China, you got South Africa, Indonesia, maybe the US again with what Trump's been saying about energy in the US. So that's one.